I'm doing good, Jazz. Doing good. I'm doing
Good.
good. Good to see you.
It's been so long. It's been years, literally.
Years, literally years. I think the last time I seen you face to face was in the hotel
I
when we
remember
was on
that too.
the T-Mac tour.
Yeah.
The T-Mac tour. The last time I seen you was that 5 years ago, 6 years, 5 years ago. 6 years?
Probably so, because Nora was one. She's six right now. So that must have been like 5 years ago. Yeah.
5 years ago. Wow,
Time flies,
wow.
right?
I'm telling you, like I can't even explain to you how good China's been. How good China's
Hey, I'm curious about your stories. I'm sure there's some interesting situations. But first, I want to tell you, welcome to Players Talk. It's amazing to have you here on this platform and to hear from you and to finally catch up again after so long. And I just
Yeah.
hope we can have a great chat. And I want people to know about you and how it is in China. And because which city are you in right now?
I'm in Fujian. Well, Fujian's a province, Xinjiang's the city. So we're in the southeastern part of China, like really close to Hong Kong, but not too close to Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on the coast. Yeah.
So you have a nice beach. I remember Fujian having the problem.
Beautiful beach. It's like this, Fujian is like picture Miami. Miami weather, Miami beaches, palm trees. It doesn't get cold. You know, we in shorts and t-shirts. So it's cool. It's good here.
But you came before. I remember you were more in the north, right? So you went from cold weather down to south. But before you went to China, I read that you also coached, because Norcross is like not too far from me. I didn't know that you coached high school in Norcross, Georgia, right here. Right?
Yes, right here, right here. So yeah, so actually how my whole coaching career started. I finished playing basketball in 2006, 7, right? I retired in 2006 and 7, no injuries, just was playing all over the world, playing professional. And at the time, I had a little stint going on with the New York Knicks. Wasn't signed, was working out with them guys, was working out with the Knicks, trying to do the whole NBA thing. And what happened is I was practicing, working out, right? Didn't get on, like didn't sign at that time. And my dad, who was a pastor there in Atlanta, Georgia, he had a position open up at the church as an athletic director. And my younger sister, she was going to be in the 9th grade that year, but she was working out with me. He was going over to Africa in the summertime, so she didn't want to go. So she was like, hey, I want to stay and train with you all summer. And I said, cool. I was already training to try to make this New York Knicks roster. So we worked out all summer. And then towards the end of the summer, she was like, Kareem, you should actually coach me. I'm like, what do you mean coach you? I'm still a player. I'm 26 at the time, not even in my prime. Nah, I'm a player. Nah, I'm definitely not going to coach you, right? And so make a long story short, I ended up coaching, accepting a position at the church at his prep academy. I was the head men's basketball coach, the women's coach. I was the athletic director. I was everything. I was everything.
You just took the whole job for you, and we're like, I'm gonna do.
Yeah, actually, so something that's kind of funny, Jazz, was he told me, he was like, you know, Kareem, where God is gonna take you, you need to learn the business from the head coaching part, the business part, management part, strength and conditioning part. So what do you mean? He said, listen, you're gonna do it all. I'm not gonna allow you to hire no help. I said, you mean tell me I can't have no assistance? He's like, no.
Wow.
And he was like, I'm not gonna give you no budget. I can give you the money, but I want you to go out and raise your own money for the athletic program. So, you know, me coming from being a player, I didn't understand what was going on. But what is that, 8 years, 10 years later, everything that he put me in back then prepared me for this moment right now.
Wow.
10 years later. 10 years later, I had no idea. 10 years later.
And at the time, I'm just wondering, at the time, did you felt like it was a harsh situation for you?
super hard. I mean, I'm looking at him like our congregation is like one of the largest congregations in the U.S. Um, I can look at Tupac and like, okay, you can give me exactly what I need for jerseys, uniforms, logistical, like expenses, everything. Like you can just you can just give it to me.
Right.
He was like, no, I need to go out here and raise it. And so I said, raise it. Like raise it. He said, yes, go out and raise. I need you to raise your budget for the year for the whole athletic program. Traveling, uniforms, expenses, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was super hard, Jazz. I mean, I had no idea just coming from playing, you know, where do I start? How do I do this? What's the connections? What's the networks in the city? You know, all these things. I had no idea how to do.
So how did you manage to do everything? Like how you were thrown in the deep, and how did you manage to survive?
Well, I took what I've been doing and started from there, basketball, right? So I said, hey, only thing I know is basketball. I've been a player for all these years, so I started doing camps, right? I started doing camps, raised a little bit of money doing camps. And then from camps, I actually met the person who owned this uniform company up in Alpharetta. His son came to the camp. I met him. He was like, hey, Kareem, hey, we can actually, you know, provide you uniforms for your whole athletic program. I said, really? Wow. So that was a connection that was made there. And yeah, and that's kind of how it took off.
Wow.
That's kind of how it took off.
Wow.
Kind of how it took off. But then, Jazz, the funny thing about it is I still had no players. Like I was the head coach of the boys team, the head coach of the women's team, the athletic director. I had no players, but my younger sister. That's it. I had no players. And so I'm like, man, you know, what do I do now? I had no players. Not to mention the reason why he had fired the head coach and athletic director was because the year before they lost every game by like 40 or 50 points.
Wow.
So I was like, man, what do I do? So I prayed about it, and I was like, you know what? There are kids around the metro area that are good, that's probably not playing on those teams. So I went out, started talking to, you know, going to different schools, going to different rec centers, going to parks, and I met these players who were really, really good players who wasn't playing at their prospective school in the city. So their parents automatically say, hey, coach, listen, yeah, we'll definitely send our kids to you. Definitely send them to the academy. And that's how I got my whole team, both boys and girls.
Wow, that's amazing.
Both boys and girls. Yeah.
So it starts here locally in the United States, in Georgia. You didn't know what you were doing, and you built your way up. So is it fair to say that you believe and I like to ask everyone this, the American dream, was that something to you? Did it have a meaning or not so much? The concept of...
Yeah, it had a meaning, but I think, Jazz, like the most thing about it was like something that I realized is a lot of times you can dream, and the things that you dream about, okay, so you dream and you pray about it, you cry about it all night, you dream about it, right?
Right.
And then you get put in a situation where you're like, man, I prayed for this thing and it didn't happen. You know, so wow, so like, is this really my dream? And I think that's the situation that I was in, which was I stopped playing basketball to coach, right? So that first year at the academy, I think the boys team, we end up going something like maybe 32-6. And then the girls team went something like 29-4. And I was like, man, I really can do this, and I'm enjoying it, right? Like, okay, now I'm a coach. And he was like, hey, Kareem, son, you're going to be a coach for the rest of your life. And I'm like, I'm doing this, like, I'm good. 5 months later, he closed the academy. And I'm like, ho. I'm like, ho, look, I'm like, listen. I'm like, ho, stop. You do know that I stopped playing basketball to coach, right? And like,
right.
He was like, yes. And I'm like, okay, so what? What do I do? He was like, be a coach. And I was like, so Dad, you closed the academy. He said, son, be a coach.